In the creating the future model, we talked about the gap between situation and desired situation actually being what promotes the impetus to pursue an understanding. Though the question is, what is it that we're actually trying to understand, and how do we go about doing that? We look at situations primarily as events. I mean, we live in the moment. If you if you go into the bathroom and you turn on the water in the bathtub and you go away and don't realize that the overflow protection isn't working, and you forget that you turned the water on, and you come back a half hour later and find out that the water is overflowing the tub and flooding the bathroom floor. It looks like an event. It just, you have a flood. It looks like an event because you didn't stay there and watch the water, which flowed into the tub at some relatively slow rate, and the water rose little by little, so that there was actually a pattern of behavior or a change over time that happened, though because you weren't paying attention, it just looked like an event. So while we perceive things as events, there are actually underlying patterns of behavior that led up to those events. It's just because we weren't paying attention, we didn't notice the patterns of behavior. We were distracted by all of the other things competing for time in our lives. And what we will, in time, come to better understand is that those patterns of behavior just didn't emerge out of nowhere. There are underlying relationships, like we talked about with the the jungle always winning, and the clearing persists as long as you continue to work on it. Though as soon as you stop working on it, the clearing goes away. The jungle wins. It's a result of the relationships that create the context, the structure that's that's responsible for that pattern of behavior that leads up to what we perceive as being events. Now, the structure itself just didn't magically come into being. That set of relationships responsible for the pattern of behavior is the responsibility of one or more individuals or groups or organizations. Um, it was it was created by intent, but probably not a broad designed intent. It happened little by little over time, though it's based upon what people did at certain points in time that they believed made sense. The one thing that you can pretty much count on is that people always, always, always do exactly what makes the most amount of sense to them in the context of the moment based on their current understanding. Now, that's a phrase that probably takes a lot of pondering to get your mind around, though you will find that it is consistently the case. So that for a particular situation which someone perceived as an event without realizing the pattern of behavior that led up to it, or the underlying structure that was responsible for the pattern of behavior leading to the event, from their current understanding in the context of the moment, they initiated a change to deal with that event without having a good understanding of the overall network of relationships that were responsible for the situation to begin with. So they added to the structure, and things simply evolve over time. So this is called the Iceberg Model, and it's consistently used within the systems community to help us understand that while we perceive things as events, there's really more beneath the surface. They call it the iceberg model because the event aspect that we perceive is a very small portion of what's really going on, and it's appropriate to understand the patterns of behavior, the underlying structure, and the mental models of all of the stakeholders who are responsible for creating that structure. Now, looking for an additional way to present this perspective, I sort of laid it on its side and said, okay, there is a situation, and then there are some patterns of behavior that have led up to that situation. And the 4 patterns here are just 4 of a multitude of possible patterns, but these 4 are probably the most prevalent that you will find. Those patterns, whichever relevant set of patterns of behavior are associated with the situation that you're considering, there is some set of interacting components with relationships that have produced these patterns of behavior leading up to the situation. And this is meant to be a very convoluted set of interactions because most of the networks of relationships that are responsible for situations are pretty much a convoluted mess. And people have referred to it as mess management over time. Though this particular network of relationships simply didn't emerge out of nowhere. I sort of really like this picture in that there are a set of 1 or more individuals or groups who have different mental models about what it is that they're working with. And this picture shows that they're on very different wavelengths about what they're thinking. And it's those unaligned, very different perspectives that result in the messes that come about, typically over some period of time, that lead up, the interactions of which lead up to the situations that we figure out that we have to deal with to straighten out the situation. So it's appropriate to understand the situation, the patterns of behavior, the network of relationships responsible for the patterns of behavior, and the underlying motivations, beliefs, mental models of those individuals involved in creating that mess that's responsible for the situation. And the real leverage point in the situation is understanding the basis for everything that follows, so that if you simply modify the structure, it's like creating the clearing in the jungle, and if you don't tend to it on an ongoing basis, the diverse mental models that created it to begin with will take it right back to where it was. So it's a long-term, deep understanding of the relationships that is essential to becoming a more effective problem solver. And I hope you found this meaningful, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.